Miss Burton, hello. I'm going to just let the people know what we have convened for. And it's to introduce the first 100-day series that Harness are putting on. Now, a little bit about Harness. They're this incredible organization that myself and Ms. Burton have been very privileged to be a part of. They exist to educate, inspire, and activate a community of artists, activists, and industry leaders to use the power of storytelling to imagine and create a more equitable world. And this conversation today is about how we reimagine America. That's the series that we're talking about. Now, Harness sees this year as the year of opportunity, and it's a chance to reimagine a future where everyone can thrive. So I would love to start by introducing Ms. Burton and saying thank you so much for having this conversation with me, Ms. Burton. I love this woman deeply. I've followed her work for many years now and have seen firsthand the impact that she's had on so many people. Ms. Burton is the founder and executive director of A New Way of Life. It's a non-profit that provides housing and other support to formerly incarcerated women. Now, she is nationally and internationally known as an advocate for restoring basic civil and human rights to those who have served time. It's my great privilege to say hello to you, Ms. Burton.
Hi, Chiké. It's great to be here with you. And, you know, I'd like to introduce you. Chiké, he is an artist, an activist. You may know him from being Mary Jane and Birth of a Nation and more. In addition to acting, Chiké has dedicated his time to advocating for the financial security of Black communities and eradication of child poverty around the globe. He is a facilitator and restorative justice for systems impacted people, and has went many times to Lancaster State Prison, where he facilitates groups there. And I just want to say that I love Chiké, and thank you for having me here today, to being with me here today, and for all the beautiful and wonderful work that you do.
First of all,
yeah,
I want everyone to see your wonderful face. So are you able to like angle the camera down a bit?
Let me let me see here. Here, okay. There we go. There we go.
When I FaceTime my mum in London, I spend maybe 80% of the time saying, "Mum, I want to see your face. Come on." I get it. But I have been so impacted. I've read your book. I actually also took many copies of your book to my students at Lancaster Prison. And I know they were so impacted by your story as well. What they were so impacted by was your ability to sort of get down to the root of the issues that you faced in your own life and the issues that many of the women that you help have faced. And I'd love you to tell just one story that really impacted me. And it was about the discrepancies that you saw in when you were trying to get help for the drug dependency that you spoke about in your own community, as opposed to when you went and sought that help elsewhere. And what were the differences, and what was that moment for you that made you realize the work that you had to do ahead of you?
So, you know, right down the 10 freeway, 5 miles from South LA, is this beach community, Santa Monica, where there's just a buffet of resources, a buffet of services is what I call it. And it was the services that I needed all of my life to try to heal from the harm and the violence that I had experienced throughout my life, throughout my childhood, and then finally the last straw was losing my son. And so I landed and found help in this beach community, and couldn't understand why these types of services were not available in South LA, and the discrepancy of what people of means and wealth and white folks, privileged folks in that community have at their fingertips. And the breaking point was, I was in an AA meeting. I'm 24 years sober now, and I was in an AA meeting, and and this guy was had been caught with drugs and alcohol and driving And he was complaining that he had to paint the jail and how much he hated the color green. And as he was talking about painting the jail, I was thinking about, I got chained and caged and had to live in that jail. And what a difference in how he was treated to do community service, and how I was caged to do time. And that was like the aha, something's got to be different.
Thank you for sharing that story. And the thing it's obviously steeped in pain, but the aha moment and how you were able to transform that moment into real activism for the people that you've now served, thousands of people that you've helped and served. And I've been to A New Way of Life. I've seen the work that Susan does firsthand. I've been to the gala every year that supports the community and the women that she serves. And it's really powerful to see that what many people aren't able to do, don't have the opportunity to do, is to turn that pain into something productive. And I think I thank you for having the fortitude and the desire to support other people and to help other people, because I've seen firsthand how it helps and how it works. What are your hopes and visions for this first 100 days? And how do you think people who are watching, people who are doing this work day to day, can continue to shift this system, specifically the criminal legal system in America?
Yes, there are so many ways that people can get involved, use their platform, use their voice, use their art to shift the system. And, I don't know how to tell everybody what they can do. But when the opportunity presents, we know what we can do. And we act. We act courageously, we act boldly, and we take action. I fought hard. We fought hard as a formerly incarcerated community all across the nation to change the White House. And we did. We also fought hard to get a majority, and we did through Georgia. But now, we want to see this administration take action. And the ways that I'm thinking that there could be action taken immediately and effectively is for the use of the executive authority to grant clemency to people, like Michelle West, who was a first time ever being arrested, and she's serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. And it's about a conspiracy drug charge. But Michelle West is a one out of thousands of people still locked up, serving enormous amounts of time, unreasonable amounts of time for crimes, for crimes that happened during the drug war, when the sentencing for crack versus powder was so outrageous. So that's the first thing. That's one of the things that the Biden-Harris administration could do. But then in addition to that, there can be an emphasis that shifts money out of the criminal legal system into our communities, into reentry housing, into building housing across our nation. Just imagine if we'd had an investment in housing in this nation like we've had an investment in prisons over the last 40 years. Where would we be? We'd be a much safer, saner, housed United States.
Whenever people ask me about the American criminal legal system, it feels like there's this big web of things that you can't quite get to the bottom of. And I think the thing that I've learned the most is that people don't actually really understand what it is that the criminal legal system does, and what it's there to do, and what it should be there to do. And I think when we think about public safety, it's proven time and time again that although officers serve some purpose in some way, maybe, they don't keep people safe in the way that people think that they do. And I think if we have historical context for that, and like you say, policies that are able to shift resources into the community, into actual public safety, then I think the argument for why the legal system is the way it is, why police are the way that they are, I think those arguments start to fall away when we start to see some real action and some real things happening in our communities. So, yeah, I agree. I think that at the bottom of it, there's a lot of things that can be done as far as raising awareness is concerned, as far as saying to people, let's take a really deep look at a complex issue. Let's take a really deep look at what prison and police and jails actually do. Yeah. If there's a better way of doing that. That's why I love the name of your organization so much, A New Way of Life. There really is an opportunity for us to advocate for a new way of life in the American legal system.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, there is. And
I knew I wanted to come to America to work and to tell stories. I knew I wanted to live in New York since I was a kid. When I moved to New York in 2011, I lived in this apartment on the Upper East Side, and there was a coffee shop beneath the apartment. And I went in there to work on my laptop and, you know, just be out of my studio apartment that was about 500 square feet. But I one day was in the coffee shop and they had a book of the week. And it was one of Bryan Stevenson's books. Bryan Stevenson, if you don't know, you should, well, you can watch Just Mercy now, but he's an incredible just thinker and civil rights lawyer. And I read this book and it just sort of pulled together so many different thoughts that I've been about why I wanted to tell stories and why I wanted to be here in the US, and why I wanted to really impact this myth of racial difference specifically. And I wanted to share with everyone a few of the things that I've learned from Bryan over the years, both personally, but also through the work that he does. He speaks often about these 4 things that we can do, and they're 4 things that I've really taken to heart. The first thing that he speaks about is to get proximate, is to be close to these issues. I think being in the US, it's so incredibly easy to be distracted and to be far away from people who are in distress, be far away from people who are downtrodden, people who are marginalized. But if you get close to those people, you can really find meaningful solutions. Like, you and I don't have all the answers. We don't know what the solutions are. But I implore people who are watching to think about getting close to these issues. Then solutions can be found. The second thing he talks about is about changing the narrative, and that's what I really took to heart as an artist. I was really fortunate. My first film when I moved to America was a film called The Birth of a Nation, and I think that helps to change the narrative of the history of enslavement in this country. Yeah. And change the narrative about who we are as a people in the US. I was so privileged to be a part of that. And if we can continue to do that, and that's what you do with A New Way of Life, if we can continue to change the narrative, to be close to marginalized people and to really trumpet their voices, to create platforms and environments where people can really have their words spoken to a wide audience. That's what I really hope I can do with my work in Hollywood, so to speak.
Yeah.
The third thing is the most important to me, because as everyone's tuned in this week and seen whether it's the trial or the continued shootings, continued mass shootings as well, but continued shootings of Black people by unarmed Black people by police officers, it's really easy to lose hope. And I think the thing that I've learned from Bryan Stevenson the most is that that hopelessness is the enemy of justice, and we can't afford to be hopeless. We just cannot afford to do it. And I've always been hopeful with the Harness community. It's a really empowering community that allows us to communicate with one another and hear each other's work. And I want to just take a moment to say thank you to America, to Ryan, and to Wilma, who are the founders of Harness. Thank you for having us in this conversation. But that hopefulness is really, really powerful and really, really important to keep on going and to keep on making sure that this work gets done to its completion. The last thing Bryan Stevenson taught me and talks about often is about doing the uncomfortable thing. You mentioned earlier that I've been into the prisons many times. I've been into prisons all over the country. I hate going to prison. I hate how I feel inside a prison. And when I was working with a dear friend of mine who was on death row in Texas, I remember every time I'd walking through those gates and seeing a guard in the tower train his gun on me, almost just as if to say, I could shoot you now if I wanted to. And knowing how helpless that feels. And look, I'm only speaking to my experiences being able to walk in and walk out again. I don't have the experience of being in there and not being able to leave, but it's not comfortable being in those places. And when Brian Stevenson implores people to do the uncomfortable thing, I genuinely experienced, even in the midst of being so uncomfortable in those environments and not liking it at all, wishing that none of them existed, quite frankly, I've still seen the most hope, the most articulacy, the most joy, the most intelligence, the most desire to do good inside of those prisons.
I just want to thank you for being that beacon of hope for so many. And, you know, we talked and we worked and wrote letters for your friend in Texas. And, you know, even though we didn't win that particular battle, we are still in the war and we're going to win. And I just, that was just a sad day, Chiké. But we keep going. We don't stop. We keep going, and that's what has to happen.
Yeah, gosh, thank you. It's I don't want to get too emotional, but I so appreciate the fact that for my friend Chris in Texas, who Susan Burton was just referring to, he received that hope as well. He received all of that joy and all of that love. He said to me the day he was executed, he said to me that people didn't say his name for 14 years. People didn't speak about him. And what we were able to do, people talked about him all over the country, all over the world. And I know that that meant something to him. But I want to speak as well to the other side of that. It's not the other side, it's all part of the same thing. One of the great joys and pieces of hopefulness that I take from that experience is having gotten so close to Mitesh Patel, who's the son of the man that Chris killed. Mitesh showed me more about forgiveness, not really like not forgiveness in the sense of I forgive you, because it wasn't about that. It was a deeper sense of I see you, I see what you've become, I see that you're not the person that you were, I see that you're more than the worst thing that you did. And the worst thing that you did took everything from Mitesh. It took his father away from him, but he was able to just very quickly dig down deep into himself and find compassion for Chris, for the man who killed his father. And speaking to Chris the few hours before he was executed, the thing that I was left with was two things. It was to keep fighting. Those were Chris's words. Keep fighting. Keep telling these stories. Keep changing the narrative, as we were speaking about earlier. The other side is that there are issues and societal things and all sorts of pressures that create a society in which people cause harm. It's just a part of being human, quite frankly. And people do cause harm. But I think the hopeful thing to do is for us all, everyone on this conversation, you and I, as we continue to do our work, to think about ways in which, this is the core of restorative justice, think about ways in which those who cause harm can be responsible for the healing that needs to come afterwards. An organization that I love and I've been aligned with for a long time is the Children's Defense Fund. I'm specifically in California. Now, the founder of the Children's Defense Fund is a wonderful woman called Marian Wright Edelman. Please look at everyone. And Marian said very famously that if you want to change the world, you have a duty to do it, but just do it one person at a time. And I think the great thing that I've learned in my journey within the criminal legal system is that one person at a time is enough. It's enough.